Welcome to the official launch of the Penrith Disability Snapshot. My name is Marcela Hart and I'm the Community Capacity Lead at Penrith City Council. I acknowledge that we are all coming from different traditional lands. I'm proud and humbled to live, play and work now in the beautiful land of the Darug and Gandangara people in the lower Blue Mountains. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I recognize that this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would like to welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders with us today. Before I hand over for the official welcome by the Mayor of Penrith, Councillor Karen McEwen, OAM, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Tricia Hitchen, and Tom Nance, the Manager of Policy and Projects at Western Sydney Community Forum, who are kindly hosting us today, I want to mention the format for the next hour. We are going to introduce you to some of the key highlights of the Disability Snapshot. We will discuss strategies to plan for inclusion, and with the help of the panel, profile what success looks like when the right supports are in place. We welcome questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. If you prefer to ask your question verbally, you can use the raise hand command at the bottom of your screen, and we will enable your microphone. We only have 1 hour, so we will try to get to as many of the questions as possible. You are always welcome to contact us directly. Our contact details will show at the end of the presentation and in the Q&A section. Your camera and microphone will be kept off for the duration of the session. And now I just want to invite you to get ready for the interactive part. We will be using Menti during the presentation. And we will finish with a call to action. So you can leave today knowing how to be part of shaping a city that embraces diversity in all its forms. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, and over to you, Madam Mayor.
Hi, my name's Karen McEwen, and I'm the Mayor of Penrith City. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that Council values the unique status of Aboriginal people as the original owners and custodians of the lands and waters, including the lands and waters of Penrith City. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the launch of Penrith's first Disability Snapshot. This important document provides a diverse picture of disability in our city. It draws on a range of social data, statistics and stories to tell us more about the experiences of people with disability in Penrith. This snapshot tells us that 1 in 20 people in our city live with a profound or severe disability, and over 15,000 live with a mild or moderate disability. It also tells us key information, such as where people with disabilities live, trends around age and gender, and most importantly, it profiles the diversity of people with disability in Penrith. The statistics presented in this report represent a broad range of residents with disability who continue to contribute to our city in countless ways. And while we couldn't share all of their stories, we know their experiences, challenges, and aspirations are unique and varied. What a snapshot reinforces is the need for us to listen to and understand the experiences of people with disability, and to make sure our services, public spaces, and businesses are responsive, inclusive, and accessible. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to developing the Disability Snapshot. In particular, I'd like to thank Westair in Western Sydney Community Forum for working with us to present this important work that will help champion inclusive practices across our city. So thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name's Tricia Hitchin and I'm Penrith's Deputy Mayor. I'd like to echo the Mayor's words to thank you for being part of this celebration and to welcome you to the launch of this important document. As you've heard, the Penrith Disability Snapshot is a valuable resource that Council hopes can be used to guide and support people to provide more accessible and inclusive places and services across our city. As the mother of a child living with disability, the need for us to provide inclusive spaces and services for people with disability is always front of mind. In fact, it was one of the reasons I first stood for council. Importantly, inclusion will help build a stronger, more connected and more inclusive Penrith for everyone. The first step to achieving this goal is to understand the needs and aspirations of all local people with disability. And this is why Council is asking for feedback from the community to help develop a new Disability Inclusion Action Plan for Penrith. We want your help to identify the challenges and the opportunities for building a more accessible and inclusive city. On behalf of the Mayor and my fellow councillors, I'd like to encourage every person with a disability, carers, family members and friends to give us their thoughts and ideas. And finally, I'd like to thank the panel members for joining us to celebrate the launch of the Disability Snapshot, and I look forward to hearing more about the fantastic work that you're doing.
Thank you both Mayor Karen McEwen and Deputy Mayor Tricia Hitchin for your welcomes. I too want to acknowledge the country that I'm on today. I'm on the land of the Cabral clan of the Darug Nation and wish to pay my respects to elders past and present, as well as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends joining us wherever you are today. We live in unprecedented times, and more so than ever, there's a need for us to make decisions that promote inclusion and access for everyone. This means having robust conversations about how we design our cities, and more importantly, how services and resources are distributed and delivered to residents. The Penrith Disability Snapshot brings data to life. It provides perspectives from the people of Penrith to provide nuance to the conversations we need to have. And I want to pay tribute to each of the participants who shared this story as part of the Disability Snapshot. In the context of the extraordinary investment we're seeing in people and place across the region, for me, I think we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get it right. As Marcella said, to shape a city that embraces diversity in all its forms. To do this, we must design our cities and services with accessibility in mind. And this report provides us with a piece of the puzzle and can play a role in decision-making for years to come. Congratulations to Jenny and the team and Penrith City Council, in particular Sophie Davis and Marcella Hart, who co-authored this snapshot. At Western Sydney Community Forum, we're proud to partner with Penrith City Council in launching this snapshot and hope you enjoy the jam-packed agenda we have prepared for you.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you to everybody so far. So I'm Sophie Davis, I'm Social Strategy Officer at Penrith City Council. I come to you from Darug and Gundungurra land today and acknowledge the traditional owners. So on the front of the snapshot, we have Emu Plains resident artist and author Susan Oxenham with her work So Foggy of the Nepean with Charles Bonnet. Do we happen to have Susan online today? I'm not sure. Hi, if you're here. Why have a disability snapshot? We've heard a little bit already, but we know that disability discrimination represents 43.7% of the complaints made to the Australian Human Rights Commission. I don't need to tell you that's a problem that we need to work together to address. So the aims of the snapshot are to profile the diversity, direct decision-making and planning, especially in the development of the new Council Disability Inclusion Action Plan. That's where you can have your say. Be a resource for local disability and community services, and highlight the importance of and crucial need for inclusive practices. The Penrith Disability Snapshot was created in consultation with disability service providers, community members, and Penrith City Council staff. We also worked with local NGO Westia to get a really good grasp on the data available. So for all of you out there who can't get enough of stats, and I'm sure there must be a few of you, you can Google Penrith Disability Snapshot, West Year Data Report, and it will take you to the page on our website where both the snapshot and the even bigger report is. Now, we've got some stats, but of course stats are not the whole story. So let's start with a definition and a qualifier. Disability is the physical and societal barriers inhibiting a person's access to what they need for a fulfilling life. Identifying is a personal choice. Some people don't identify, as with the appropriate support, they can live a full and active life, and also because they just might not want to. Others identify, but their needs and their experiences are not captured by ABS statistics and such as the census data. So, just next slide. Thanks, Marcella. Basically, we've got a little quick quiz for you. So if you can go to your phone or to your laptop and go to www.menti.com and put in the code 79545598. That's 79545598. So quick quiz. According to the 2016 ABS census, how many people with disability live in the Penrith local government area? Ooh, ooh, ooh. We're getting there. Okay, so the correct, just wait a moment. We've got a few people in there. Okay, the correct answer is approximately 1 in 20 or 5.2%. Okay, we've got one more question from Menti. Thanks. According to the 2018 ABS Survey of Disability and Ageing and Carers, how many people with disability live in the Penrith local government area? Approximately 1 in 20 or 5.2%, approximately 1 in 10, or approximately 13 in 100. A little bit of a trick question. Okay, and the answer actually is approximately 13 in 100 or 12.6%. Now, the census and the SDAC, or Survey of Disability, Ageing and Carers, actually measure disability slightly differently, which is a little bit maddening. The census focuses on profound and severe, whereas the SDAC breaks it down and references a broader range from mild, moderate, severe or profound, and that's where we get this variation. The 2018 ABS Survey of Disability, Ageing and Carers, or SDAC, identifies 12.6% of our population in Penrith LGA with mild, moderate, severe or profound disability living in Penrith, whereas across the whole of Australia, it's almost 17% of the population. So in Penrith City, we actually have a lower proportion of people living with disability than the Australian average. So, fun fact, our next little Menti one, just a quick one now. According to the 2016 census, how many people who are carers have a disability themselves in Australia? Is it 1%, 5%, or more than 30%? Okay. The correct answer is more than 30% of carers actually have a disability themselves. So we are very diverse in our disability identity and roles. It's more than 2.65 million carers in Australia actually have a disability themselves. So disability people of all ages, cultures and backgrounds. It's a normal part of life and contributes to the fabric of our community. People with disability are parents, carers and children. They go to work, school, higher education, they buy goods and services and contribute to the community. A couple of examples are two people that we heard from, including a father of two from Glenmore Park, sitting here with Claire Galvin, some of you may know, and Anthony, who's talking about his experience during early COVID lockdowns. Thanks, Marcella. So, with disability stats, ageing, I'm sorry to say, is a thing, as disability increases with age. In fact, the largest 5-year age bracket is the 65 to 69-year age bracket with 853 people. Thanks, Marcella. In the Nepean Blue Mountains Local Health District, whilst age is a thing, people under 15 years of age represented just under half of NDIS participants. That was in December 2020. You'll see here 37.6% of people in the Nepean Blue Mountains LHD received NDIS support for autism. The next largest group was intellectual disability with 20.2%, then developmental delay, then psychosocial disability, then hearing impairment. Now, the NDIS recipients, as you know, are under 65 years old, so the age-related disabilities such as cognitive impairment, dementia, hearing, sight and physical impairments for those people are not picked up in these figures. Thanks, Marcella. Now, we've got another Menti coming up. When we look at gender, there's some interesting things happening here. You've got your Menti code. True or false? There are more men than women under the age of 30 living with disability. True or false? They're coming in. Ooh, you're in two minds. The answer is actually true. There are more men than women under the age of 30 living with disability. And this is most likely in relation to the number of boys who are diagnosed with autism. And we know that autism is underdiagnosed for girls. So next quick Menti question. There are more men than women over the age of 30 living with disability. True or false? Okay, and the answer is false. There are more women than men over the age of 30 living with disability. And this is most likely due to women living longer and disability increasing with age. Plus, men, they've found, don't always identify as often as women as living with disability. Thanks, Marcella. So thinking, and there's the stats. You can see under 20 and under 30, there's more men, and over 30 and over 65, there's more women. Thinking about service provision, it's useful to look at the supports over a lifespan and how they may differ. There's some things people require across the whole lifespan, such as social inclusion, but then we look at more specifics, such as parenting supports. We have approximately 1,700 children and young people who need education. Then there's safe relationships as people move to more independent lives. We have almost 1,000 people who may need transition to work or further education support. There's independent housing and living, workplace adjustments, parenting older adult children with disability, and aged care. We have 4,505 people over 65 years who may need assistance with specialist disability aged care services and supports. Thanks, Marcella. We're diverse in many ways. Language diversity is just one of them. Did you know 22% of people living with disability in Penrith LGA spoke a language other than English at home? Arabic, with 250 people, was the language most likely spoken at home. Next slide. So St Mary's is the suburb with the largest number of people with disabilities speaking a language other than English at home, with 35.1% of those people with disability. The main language other than English is Arabic, with 33 people, but then also consider their carers, family and friend networks also speaking Arabic. And we've also got 7 people speaking Auslan in St Mary's alone. Thanks, Marcella. Penrith has a significant and proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community with 7,741 residents that make up 3.9% of the total population of Penrith, which is higher than the New South Wales average of 2.9%. So of this population, 552 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are living with disability, representing 7.1% of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in Penrith. This is considerably higher than the non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, because remember that was 5.2% or 1 in 20 with that profound and severe. The age profile of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living with disability is young. Children aged 5 to 9 years are the most significant age group, with 83 children identified. These statistics highlight the need for culturally appropriate early intervention services, as well as support and social inclusion opportunities. We've also got an opportunity here for non-Aboriginal disability service providers and the community at large to learn from the local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities' demonstrated history of inclusion to strengthen broader practice around support for people and families living with disability. As we know, employment brings social inclusion, a sense of belonging, ways to form relationships, a sense of value, health and well-being, and opportunities to learn and contribute. In the snapshot, we feature Greta Serov, who writes a blog called On Our Own Tracks. She's got her own business making and selling t-shirts, cups and masks. She's got 3 jobs and is part of Writing for the Disabled. So in Penrith, we have 72% of people not in the labour force. We have 2% people unemployed or seeking work and 7% employed. The employed result is actually higher than the New South Wales average. So we're doing well here, but there's always room for improvement. We also know from the snapshot, the top 5 suburbs where people with the highest amount of, where people with disability live. They're Penrith, St Mary's, St Clair, Glenmore Park and Cranebrook. Then when you break this down by age, the results are slightly different. For instance, Glenmore Park has the most children with disability. Glenmore Park has a lot of families anyway. Cranebrook has the highest number of people with disability in the working age range, and Penrith has the most people with disability who are over 50 years old. In 2016, in the census, 1,157 people were living with disability in Penrith City were living alone. They represented 11.4% of people living with disability. Penrith's comparatively high proportion of people living with disability and living alone compared to Greater Western Sydney and New South Wales was not uniform across each suburb. Penrith suburb actually had 248 people, or 22% of people with disability living alone. Warrington had 50 people, or 21.4%, and Kingswood had 117 people living alone with disability, or 19%. I recently heard a speaker from the Social Policy Conference say, so COVID has now really illustrated to the world, hello, how difficult it is to build relationships and friendships when you don't have those incidental and casual interactions. So these stats about people living alone with disability, with those extra barriers, show us the need for social inclusion support for people with disability. And last one, thanks Marcella. People with disability who live alone may be especially vulnerable during extreme weather conditions, natural disasters and emergencies, as we've just seen over the last almost 2 years. So thank you guys. That's the overview. There's heaps more in the actual report on our website, the Disability Snapshot, and even more in the Penrith Disability Snapshot First Year Data Report, which I said before is on our website as well, or links to it. So thank you, Marcella.
Thank you, Sophie. And just before we move on to our panelists, we wanted to do the last Menti for today. And we want to hear from you. What did you learn or what stood out from what you just heard? And I just want to remind you that Sophie spoke about age, gender, type of disabilities, where people live, and the cultural and linguistic diversity of the community. So if you want to put in the Menti what stood out for you, that'd be great. We can read you. Diversity, the stories reflected in the data, yeah, the different places where people live, people with disability living alone, yeah, that stood out, absolutely.
Marcella, I just have a question from Renee Harmer who'd like to quickly ask something. Maybe we can do that while people pop their words in.
Hi, sorry, I'm actually Christy McCarthy. I work with Renee Harmer. She asked me to fill in here. I'd just like to make a slight commentary on the living alone. While you guys have highlighted that it potentially is a hard thing, I actually see it more as quite a positive thing in some situations. So I myself am a person with a significant disability, and I have only I'm 40 now, and I've only just got my first opportunity to live alone, and it's actually quite empowering. So it's not always a negative thing. I think people are given an opportunity to live alone, and I think that's a wonderful thing as well.
Thank you, Renee. Absolutely. And
Christy.
Christy. Thank you, Christy. I absolutely second that. And Greta actually in her blog on Our Own Tracks writes about how to kind of get into independent living and how to get your own space. And that's a really inspiring article I read of hers. So really thank you for bringing that up, because yes, it's a big thing and it's a good thing. Thank you. Could be framed as living independently. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Christy. And I hope that when we get to our panel, that actually will be addressed in terms of independence and autonomy. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for popping in the Menti, some of the things that stood out for you. I am now going to stop sharing and transition to hearing from our panelists. The snapshot has valuable insights into the makeup of our community. And it's now on us to use this data to adapt the way we live, we work, and we play to ensure that diversity is recognized, it's explored, and it's included in all our planning. And as Sophie mentioned, the stats are definitely not the whole story. So now I want to invite Tim Hans. Tim is a professional musician and music educator with a degree in communications and international studies. For the past year, he has been applying his video production skills to filming and directing online content for Sean and Mary, two young best friends with Down syndrome. The show is called Get Down with Sean and Marley, and I could not recommend it highly enough. So please go and Google it and YouTube it. This side project has now become a focus for Tim, as their videos have attracted a large global audience, with one of their videos reaching 80 million views on TikTok. Tim, can you share with us your experience of working with Sean and Marley, and what have you learned?
Thanks for that. So first of all, thank you for having me on here to discuss these things. And yeah, it's been a really interesting process and learning experience for me working with Sean and Marley, because prior to working with them, I had very little experience working with people with disability. And I got asked by their parents to basically do some sort of creative project with the two boys, because they love music, they love performing. And I was given this very broad brief of just do something creative with them. And I must admit, when I first started doing this, I was quite intimidated by the prospect of it. And I had no idea how it was going to go. I had no idea what I would do with them. But anyway, I started doing it sort of thinking like, oh, this will be like, it'll be nice to help them. I felt like I was sort of being charitable by helping them out. But as I started working with them and learning about them and making things with them and finding out what their skills were and what their strengths were, it stopped being a charitable project for me, and it just became another project. And I think the key to that was really learning about what they could do. And now, like, yeah, if you're unfamiliar with them, we basically, the first thing I did with them was making a song, and we produced a song with them rapping and singing on it, and we made a music video, which we put up on YouTube. And then we had the idea of making a cooking show with the two of them. And we put that up on YouTube, and it went okay in terms of the views. But then when my partner, who also works on the videos with us, she put clips up on TikTok. And TikTok has this amazing ability for things to go viral. And one of the clips from the cooking show went viral on TikTok, and it just blew up. And now we have about 16,000 subscribers on YouTube. We have 50,000 followers on Instagram, and we have 1.2 million followers on TikTok. So this little project, which for me just started out as like something that I thought was just sort of a charitable project, has ended up becoming like really successful. And yeah, it's really changed the way I view working with them, that they are actually really talented at what they do. And a lot of people are really interested in what we make with them. So I think it's really fantastic to see this happening. And one of the most important things I've learned, which I think could be applied to other aspects of the disability sector and working with people with disability, is you need to find what works well for them. Because something that I found, whenever I tried to treat them in the way that I would treat non-disabled people that I worked with, it was very hard to get good results out of them, because I had an idea of how things should go, and I had an idea of what we should be making. And if I gave them too many instructions to sort of create my idea of what we should be doing, it just wouldn't work out. But when I sort of built the task so I could let them have a bit more freedom and then build around what they do to create the result, then that worked much better. And one example is with the song that we made. You know, I tried to get them to sing certain lines and to do certain things, and their musical ability wasn't as strong as, you know, professional musicians that I work with. So what I ended up doing was I sort of made like a bit of a drum beat, and then I just recorded them rapping and singing and just letting them do whatever came naturally to them. And then what I did was I took what they recorded and then built the song around that, rather than me building a song and trying to fit them into it. I just sort of had to build around them. And the same thing applies to the cooking show that we do. And every other video we've done, I just sort of put the camera on, I give them a basic idea of what we want to go for, and then I just let anything happen, because that's what people really love with our videos on TikTok and YouTube. They really love these natural moments where the boys are just being themselves. And I think people really love the relationship between the two boys, and their interactions and their misunderstandings and all these things that are unique to them. And yeah, I see a lot of my role as allowing that to happen, and not putting up any barriers to them expressing themselves in a natural way. So yeah, that's basically been my experience working with them, and I think that's really important to find out when we're working with people with disability, what are their strengths and what can they offer that's unique to us? Because I think if we try and fit them into roles that we have that are basically designed for people without disability, they're just going to do, like, a lot of times they're not going to be able to do that job as well as someone without that disability. Certainly in the case with one of the boys I work with, their verbal ability is quite low. And so if I expect him to deliver a verbal performance in a way with someone without that disability, he's just not going to do that job as well. But then if I find what he really excels at and what he's good at, then suddenly I'm not working with someone with a disability. I'm working with someone with an ability. So I think that's what's been really important for me, is once you find their strengths, it's no longer disability. It's just a strength.
Thank you so much, Tim. And I wish we had time to show a snippet of what Get Down with Sean and Marley looks like. So people could get
anyone who wants to check them out, you just go onto YouTube and type Get Down with Sean and Marley. And you can also find us on Instagram under the same name, and TikTok as well.
Thank you so much, Tim. And what I'm hearing really loud and clear is that your experience has been one of really shedding and seeing the creative, the difference, the talent as a defining element of Sean and Marley rather than the disability. And it's a great thing to take from your experience. Thank you so much, Tim.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I am now going to introduce our next guest, Hayden. Hayden Payne is the founder of Spectrumite, an organization that assists families and young adults with neurodiverse conditions to thrive in tertiary education and employment. He's also a youth worker, a dual diagnosis professional, a trainer and assessor with autism and Tourette's, and a podcaster. Hayden describes himself as an autistic developer of mentoring and training programs to build a bridge between people on the spectrum, businesses and professionals, so that all can survive, adapt, and ultimately thrive. Hayden, can you share with us your experience of working with neurodiversity as a person with lived experience, and what would be your message to employers and the sector?
Well, hello everyone. I would say that my primary message to both people living with neurodiverse disability that are looking for a job, and for employers and businesses that are looking to take on somebody living with a neurodiverse condition, is you've got to have an honest and open conversation about what reasonable adjustments can be provided to the person and what the person with a disability can bring to the table. I try and see now. I mean, everyone's seen Rain Man. There's almost the stereotype of the autistic savant, and society's come a long way in terms of its understanding of what autism and other neurodiverse conditions are. But one of the critical things to take away is to realise that neurodiverse disability is rarely the whole picture. Autism has a 70% comorbidity rate with depression and anxiety, and it's often not the only factor on the table. And the fact is, you are dealing with somebody literally with a non-typically wired brain. We see the world and perceive the world in a different way. our senses are impacted differently. Our social and sensory tolerances are different to the norm, and that's not always an easy thing to adapt for. But to any of the neurodiverse listeners that are looking to get into community, to engage in the community, to get into employment and education, and are worried about the impacts of the neurodiverse disability posing a problem towards that independent facilitation and access, is, first of all, for all of my clients, I recommend the best author for the solutions to your barriers is ultimately you. I take an approach when I work with families and clients that we take the individual circumstances into account, the individual sensory social issues, whether or not there's comorbid disability there. It's entirely an individualized approach. And the current paradigm is still very much autism is a disability of socio-emotional reciprocity and restricted and repetitive interests. And that hasn't been my experience. I've worked with a number of teens and young adults, and they all generally display differently. They have different dreams, they have different skills and barriers, and their disability impacts them in a very unique way. So one of the things I'd recommend is don't allow yourself to be put into a box by practitioners, by other people around you. Look at the talents that you have that are unique to you. What skills have you got? And you might even not think that they are professionally or commercially exploitable. I once had a client whose sole interest was Minecraft. All he wanted to do was Minecraft. And I'll be quite honest, I got frustrated and I said, okay, build me the Parthenon in Minecraft. I came back a week later and he had built the Parthenon in Minecraft at 100:1 scale perfectly, using nothing but Minecraft bricks. So I've gone, all right, mate, we're going to get you signed onto a computer-assisted drawing course. And would you like to design buildings for a living? He nodded and he wanted to give it a go. And he's now working in the architecture sector and is now probably making a lot more money than I am. So it may not seem like you've got a unique talent, but you probably have a lot of skills that are commercially valuable and viable. And we just need to create an environment of appropriate support for you to apply those skills and to help businesses in the commercial sector to realize you've got talents which you can tap, which can be valuable not only for you in terms of getting into employment and education and ultimately building a strong, independent life is so far as practical for you to do so, but you can give something back to the world. And I would highly recommend to employers, don't just look at the potentially somewhat awkward person who's sitting in an interview and seems a bit unsure of themselves. If they tell you they're neurodiverse or if they're autistic, ask them about their hobbies and the skills that they have, and you might find something which could be very, very valuable to your business. I'll give another example. I've got another former client who is completing his apprenticeship as a lift technician. He'll be a Sparky in a couple of months. He can take a lift together assemble it, pull it apart, and is now involved in directly training his team on rare models of lift and has a unique insight and knowledge which is uncommon and uncanny within the industry. And he's now making a name for himself within the company that he's working for and is soon to be training other staff completely independently. So I'm just mindful of the time. How much longer do we have? Marcella, are you there?
Yeah, I'm just here. Thank you, Hayden. Hayden and I had a conversation before, and he asked me to step in when he was close to his time. Hayden, thank you so much for sharing those examples. I mean, there's a lot to take away from what you shared with us, but what I think I want to highlight is the individual experiences and the need to be to have an individualized approach, because not only the disability will express itself differently, but also the aspirations and the skills are very diverse. And the other thing I heard is the importance of lived experience supporting people with the experience, because it seems that you understand in a way that people who are not in the spectrum wouldn't. So thank you so much for sharing your experience, Hayden. I'm gonna now move the microphone to Sophie, who's gonna share with us some questions, if there's any.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Hayden. I got so much. I love that, building the Parthenon with the right supports. I just think that's brilliant. And so much of what you said. But the questions coming through. So, what opportunities might exist for those who are non-verbal autistic? Do you have any examples, Hayden? And pop your questions in the chat, and I'll read them out for you. If anyone else. So, non-verbal autistic, employment opportunities. Yeah,
sure. It's going to depend on a number of factors, but again, verbal communication. If they're non-verbal, just because they are a non-speaker doesn't mean that there's not a skill there which can be tapped. My former mentor, Brenda Karp, who I should have dropped a mention to, she's had several clients that are not non-verbal, and now they work in is it audiology? Essentially, they design tracks and work on music balancing, and their ability to pick out the most minute of errors and the way they're able to balance tracks. Just because they can't speak doesn't mean that they don't have something that's commercially viable to offer. It can just be a very difficult thing to recognize and extract when the person on the spectrum doesn't have the ability to tell you. You've generally just got to look. You've got to keep a very open mind. You've got to look at what does this person enjoy? What do I see that they are reacting to? What's going on in their environment that they're responding to in a way that is bringing them joy and enjoyment, and how can that be encouraged? I'm not suggesting it's going to be practical to support everyone on the spectrum to reach 100% level of independence.
Thank you, Hayden. Just the person wanted to know, what was the name of the lady with these clients? They just missed that.
Brenda Karp of Autism Step Australia. She's got 30 years experience.
Brenda Karp
and
Autism
Karp.
Autism
Step Australia.
Autism Step Australia. Thank you so much.
Correct.
Hayden, another question, just quickly. Do you provide any training for organisations such as DES providers? So
yes, that's actually what we've recently been trying to move into. I am a product of the system myself. I've been through DES providers. I've worked with DES providers in the past. We've delivered some training to Job Prospect Blacktown about before COVID hit, and we're looking to expand. We believe that working with businesses and community services organisations and educators is where praxis, it's the leading edge of the sword. It's where you're going to, we want to train people in the methods that we use with our clientele to teach their staff to see the world insofar as practical for a neurotypical person, to see the world through our eyes, our ears and our senses, and to consider the factors that the support worker or case manager may not be aware of. If I may, this will only take a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. We had a client with a job agency. He'd get a job. He was fine during the interview process. He'd got that down pat. He knew how to present. He knew how to shake hands. He was great at speaking and advocating for himself. But he was doing fast food jobs, and that was all the desk provider had put him forward for. And 2 weeks into every job, he would have a meltdown and have some behavioural issues and wind up losing his position and breaking down. And eventually he reached the point where he's like, Hayden, I can't keep doing this. I don't know what keeps going wrong. So we sat him down, we had a chat, and we did a sensory. I have a sensory management, a sensory processing disorder management system that I train my clientele in. We ran through that, and he scored 10 out of 10 on hypersensitivity for auditory. Now you think of how much noise goes down inside your average KFC, how much beeping, how much foot shuffling, how many smells and noises and beeps, and the tremendous amounts of environmental pressure. So we implemented some reasonable adjustment with his next employer and said every half hour, he's going to need 5 minutes to recover. The employer asked me, well, how can I reasonably justify paying him for those 10 minutes? And I'm going, because you're going to get amazing service out of him, provided he can regulate and manage his needs effectively. And once that was put into place, he was sustainably able to maintain employment in that job. But the DES provider, who was his caseworker, had no idea that was even a factor for him. So we moved in to train the staff on, how to do a sensory analysis score. And it's just not something that comes up. I've seen this time and time and again. But yes, we do training, and that's where we really hope to make an impact. So if we have any DES providers, community organisations, or educators that are interested in contacting us, get in touch.
Fantastic, thank you.
Shameless plug over. Sorry.
There's so much there, Hayden. I think it sounds like you're doing incredible work with some incredible people too, and just
we want to do more of it.
Yeah, and getting what you need and getting on with the job. So thank you so much. There was a question about, do you work with high school students? We just we do need to move along, but just quickly, do you work with high school students, high school leavers?
I haven't worked directly with high school, but I am youth work trained, and we've been meaning to get into the education sector. We've done some transition to TAFE programs, getting secondary students ready for tertiary, but high school we had to do, but we can do it.
Okay, fantastic. And I think it's Christy who wanted to get some contact details. Okay. So we'll see if we can get those into the chat, if that's okay. Hayden, are you okay to do that? Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's just brilliant. And thanks to Tim previously, thanks to Hayden. Oh my goodness, how much amazing work's going on. Thank you once again. I'll pass over to Marcella. And Hayden's popping those details in the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hayden, and thank you, Tim. It is really, it gives such a different story when you can hear firsthand what's happening in the community. So what is next? We promised at the beginning that we would leave you with a call to action. At Penrith Council, we are proud of the work we do to advance inclusion. We have a valued and recognized Access Committee that in previous years has contributed to a broad range of projects and strategies, including the Council's Disability Inclusion Action Plan, infrastructure projects to make Council services and facilities more accessible, input to major developments in the city, including the Regatta Park and Tench Reserve upgrades. Some of the proudest achievements of our last Disability Inclusion Action Plan, among many, include the implementation of adult change facilities beyond the guidelines, the Nepean Jobs for All project, and installing 80 tactile indicators at bus stops in priority locations. We want to build on the successes and want to invite you to be part of shaping the future. How? Well, let's develop an ambitious next Disability Inclusion Action Plan, 2022-2026. This is our opportunity to drive inclusion across the city. There are 3 ways for you to be involved. Give us feedback. Have Your Say is open until 20th of December, and feedback is also available over the phone. Help us organize a conversation with your community so we can hear in more detail what the challenges and aspirations of people with disability are. And third, own an action in the next Disability Inclusion Action Plan. This is a community and sector effort. So please get in touch with us, and we hope you found today informative, thought-provoking, and energizing. Don't forget to help us by filling out the evaluation that is gonna come your way straight after this session. Thank you again for being here with us today.